talking about SNL, the history, the mysteries, and all the hot impressions in between, breaking down all the numbers as well. In your favorite sketches with special guests, it's on the Saturday Night Network.
Yes, that is right. Welcome everybody on into the SNN for another edition of SNL Stories. And we have a couple of great panelists on with us today for an interview I am so excited about. So first, let me bring in my man, James Stevens. James, how are you?
I am so excited for this one, John. This is he's not been a podcast guy for very many occasions, so we're excited.
Yes, this is a special night where we get to talk to one of the greats that doesn't get enough love, and we're here to give it to him. And we could not do this without the incredible Andrew Dick here tonight. So, Andrew, welcome to the show. So excited to have you on this one.
Yes, so excited to be here. Yes, Tim Kazurinsky, one of my favorite cast members of all time. So I am. This is like Christmas, and then you also get to talk to Santa. So I can't wait.
Yes. Would never have done this without you. So very happy to have you on the show here. So of course, we are here as a presentation of latenighter.com, and we hope you enjoy the conversation we're about to have with Tim. Let us know your thoughts on, as you go through these questions with Tim and all of his responses. Incredible career that he's had, not only on SNL, but all the things he did before and after his time at the show. So can't wait to see what everyone thinks of this one. Enjoy our conversation with Tim Kazurinsky. Yes, so welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network for another edition of SNL Stories, our interview podcast where we catch up with SNL alumni from all eras. And I'm so pumped to get to talk to the man, the myth, the legend, Tim Kazurinsky's in the house. Tim, how are you?
Man, that's a tough intro to live up to, but I'll give it my damnedest.
We're so excited to talk to you. I mentioned this to you when we were having a brunch together at the 50th. We got to see you and spend some time with you. And I said, I don't know if you know this, but there is a large segment of the SNL fandom that is such huge fans of your work on the show and talks about you every day.
That is so nice to know, because for a person who got off the internet social media train at email, it's nice to hear.
Well, I'm very excited to celebrate your career and talk to you about all of the great moments. So let me start back at the beginning. Of course, James and Andrew have a ton of things they want to ask you as well.
Right.
But I want to talk to you about your time, before Saturday Night Live, enrolling at the Second City. What was that experience like when you decided this is what you want to do with your life?
Oh boy, let's start at the beginning. I kind of grew up in Australia until I was 16, and I had an ulcer at 14, and a doctor said, you need to get out of the house as soon as you can, because your whole family's alcoholic. And so I quit school at 15, got a job, came over to a week after my 16th birthday, came over to America, lived with a couple of crazy Polish aunts in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Finished high school in a year, worked a year as a reporter at the Johnstown Tribune Democrat newspaper. And after that year, I moved to Chicago, I went to Pitt for a year, then Wright Junior College, then I went to U of I, and I ended up not going back into the newspaper business. I went into the ad business, worked at Leo Burnett and McCann Erickson, and I was terrified to present my commercials, and somebody said, take a class at Dale Carnegie or Second City, and Second City sounded like more fun, and so I went and took some classes at Second City with George Wendt, with Josephine Forsberg, and then with Del Close. And then they offered me a job. And so for, I believe, an 80 to 90% pay cut from what I was making in the ad business. And I thought, well, I'd be an idiot to pass this up.
Right.
So I went, and it was so much fun. I couldn't believe it, and I loved everybody, and did this new improv thing. And Del was a great teacher, and then kind of that was 1976, 77. And then weirdly, I got hired at Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. So before we get there, because I do, you
Sure.
touched on a couple of people that interacted with you in your life, and I want to start with Del Close, because we've heard all these amazing stories about Del, and being like the forefather of a lot of comedy that we see. That's, probably there's still elements that are integrated into the show today. But I would just love to know, like, what was the relationship for you like with Del Close, working with him at the Second City?
If half the Del Close stories are true, he's like an amazing freaking human being. I mean, he worked with Lenny Bruce. He was, his whole apartment was filled with books. He was this genius. There were the stories that he punched out. Nicholson May, Elaine May's mother, one time. I mean, it's just crazy shit. He was a bit of a misogynist. He was not, but he had this gift. It was like the doors of perception. He could just cut through all the bullshit and get to the essence of what improv was better than anybody that I'd ever met. I did not have a personal relationship with Del, which is kind of crazy. There was a story about Del where he shook hands with Irv and Essie Cupsonet, who were big newspaper people in Chicago, and a cockroach ran out of his arm and up Essie's sleeve. So it's just like this. Del stories are
Unbelievable.
And then he kind of came to work at Saturday Night Live when I was there. They hired him to sort of teach some improv stuff, which just, kind of didn't really work because it's a different medium. It just gave him a lot more money to buy bigger and better drugs. So,
So something fascinating I've found from your past is a pilot that I believe the Second City produced, and I think it was like February '81, so right before you joined the cast, and it was 2+1. Don't know if you recall this. It was you, Mary Gross, and George Wendt.
Yeah.
And so I wonder just if you can explain anything about this pilot, and if you want to say anything about working with George as well.
Oh God, George. I don't. I think. Oh, what was it? We had Bernie Solins, the boss of Second City, had some sort of deal with, I think it was NBC, I'm not sure, to develop some stuff. And we did that. God, we were so young. And I remembered having a good time doing it. I can't remember much about it, but I love those people. My cast at Second City that we had, to this day, we are all in touch. We communicate, not so much even with the Saturday Night Live people, because bigger money, bigger stakes. But my Second City family were the tightest bunch ever, and to this day, I mean, Tuesday and Wednesday, I just spent the entire day just sobbing because of George. It was. I love George so much, and we just kept together. I'd been a screenwriter for about 20 years, and then he called me up one time and said, "I'm going to the largest dinner theater in America in Kansas City to do The Odd Couple, and I want you to come with me." And I said, "George, it's been so long since I've been on stage. I don't know what to." And he says, "Oh, just shut the fuck up." He said, "I got to be Oscar. You're Felix. Let's go." And so we went to Kansas City for 4 months, sold out every night, laughed ourselves stupid. And the entire cast went out to like dinner after the show every night. It was a dinner theater. We went out afterwards and ate barbecue. And George and I both ended up getting stents and bypasses and all the barbecue we ate in Kansas City. But it was a delight I loved Midwest theater because everybody goes out and everybody gets a drink together, and and I remember doing Act of God in New York and not going out ever once with the cast or crew. It's just like it's a different thing. Everybody's got to get on a train to Astoria or Jersey or whatever. So, but no, it was yeah. And George and I did a movie once in the UK. It was called My Beautiful Son, which Julie Walters won the BAFTA for, and Paul Reiser does a freaking amazing job in that movie, and George played the best friend. So anytime that we could get a chance to work together, we did, and I loved him dearly, and he was an amazing actor, and God, and the heart and soul of Cheers, which was such a great show. But you think about it, Norm, everybody knows his name, and
Mhm.
So beloved, so beloved. And you know, you never disappoint. You've got these great stories. So let's go back to your origin story, your SNL origin story. Talk to us about how that came to be. Isn't there a Belushi connection?
well, yeah. After I left Second City, I'd helped co-write a pilot for a show called Big City Comedy, which we shot in Orem, Utah, in the new $90 million Donnie and Marie studio, in which there was no coffee, no ashtrays, and finally John Candy went to the guys and said, "Hey, we need a coffee maker, we need ashtrays, and we need to get some beer." And we ended up making a run to a special state store and loaded up on some beer. And the gal at the checkout counter, when we put it up, says, "You have to put it in bags yourself." And
They won't touch it.
and John said, "Well, how does it get on the shelf?" He said, "Do you like hire Irish people?" So, but we had a blast making the pilot. So, but we shot for a season up in Toronto, and it was wonderful. We had guests like, oh,
Fred
Rita,
Willard, Billy Crystal, I've seen.
Billy Crystal, um, Fred Willard, my God, the most funniest man ever. Betty White, Rita Moreno. I said, just fantastic people. And John hadn't blown up as Big John Candy yet. He was still a god in Toronto. But I came back, and then this guy Dick Ebersol came and wanted to talk to me, and blah blah blah. And he's buying me drinks at the pump room, and I'm drinking gin and tonics, and he says, and I'm like giving him advice. You should have Mary Gross, and and Eddie and Joe, and those, and like the liquor is talking, and then he says, "Well, we want you to be part of the show," and I'm like, "Holy crap! I just got hired as a writer for SNL," and I'm like, "Oh, this is crazy! This is crazy!" And a few minutes later, he says, "Do you have your AFTRA card?" And I went, "Why would I need an AFTRA card?" And he said, "Well, everyone in the cast has to be AFTRA." And I went, "Cast?" He says, "Yeah, why'd you think I hired you?" I says, "As a writer." And he says, "You write?" The world was like Bizarro Planet, like it is now with,
Yeah.
so Jesus, that's how that happened. I was stunned, only to find out months later that John Belushi had told him this guy would be a good den mother for the new family. So
Was this before or after you were in Neighbors with John and Dan?
Neighbors came after one episode of Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And
between season 6 and 7.
Right.
John Avildsen was the director. And so I was going back to Chicago. And John, who I had met when he was doing in Chicago, when I was on stage at Second City doing Blues Brothers and famous. He played a journalist with Blair Brown. He was playing Mike Royko, who was the most favorite journalist in Chicago.
I know what you're talking about. I've not seen it. I can't conjure the name. Sorry.
Yeah. But anyway, that. So, so anyway, Jon kind of didn't want me to go back to Chicago because the writer's strike happened.
Continental Divide.
The Continental Divide. Thanks. A great director too. So he said, "Well, stick around." He said, "We're doing this movie Neighbors, and you'd be great as Pa Greavy." And the director John Avildsen was like, "John, this guy's 30 years old. Old man Greavy's like 70." And John goes, well, "He can do it. He can do it." So he said, "Give me a few hours." He got amazing makeup guy to make me look like old man Greavy. And so and he just literally shoved me into that movie. And I had such a great time doing it and hanging out with John and Danny. And when the movie was over, John Avildsen, who ended up ruining a movie years later that I wrote, came up to me and said, I didn't want to hire you, right? I said, "Oh, yeah." Yeah, I said, "But you did okay." So it was like, it was fine. But
So you come in there for that one episode after Gene Domanion is let go. Dick Ebersol comes in. You mentioned this meeting that Dick has. You find out later that the Belushi basically is recommending you. So you come in. This is episode 13. This is April of 1981. There are 12 episodes that happen. This ends up being the one and final the final episode of that season. And you come in with Robin Duke and Tony Rosato, right?
yeah,
And you're you're the glue. You're the den mother, as you say. So did you watch? Were you observing any of season 6 up to that point, the previous 12 episodes?
yeah, I did. I watched it all. Yeah.
What'd you think?
Well, there's a lot of talented people in there. And God, Gilbert Gottfried, please, Eddie, Joe, Denny Dillon. They're all.
Gil Mathias. I'm a big stumper for season 6 personally.
Great, yeah. And Risley, the people were all good, and somehow, somehow it just didn't click. I don't know what it was, and I thought they were all really good. Look at when Lorne took the show back over, when he had that group with Randy Quaid, Michael Anthony Hall, and
Absolutely.
there was just a lot of terrific people there too. It didn't gel. It was like there was always at Second City some cast that didn't quite click too. So for me, my favorite 2 years in show business were my 2 years at Second City. It was the most wonderful people and the most wonderful work, and adventurous and different and fabulous. And we did a horror version of the Three Little Pigs and scared the shit out of the audience.
So Tim, this is fascinating because it's like this is the moment. This is like one of about a half dozen times that the show is up for potential cancellation, right?
Yeah.
So you're there. Do you recall, because the previous episode 12 was about a month prior, something like that.
Yeah.
The writer's strike and all that is looming.
It's happening. You guys did the episode while the strike was happening.
Right. So do you recall how long you were hired in front of that episode with Dick? His first episode, your first episode?
A couple of months. It was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Interesting.
Just a couple of months. Yeah. Fortunately, when that one show that we did, Eddie was astonishing. The material all worked. I did the I Married a Monkey scene.
You did. I Married a Monkey. The first, it shows up there. Yeah.
Mike Short, Marty Short's brother, had tried to get done up in when we were doing Big City Comedy, and I butchered that and did that, and it was. I still owe Mike Short some money because it ended up becoming a running thing. So he's yeah, that Short family is something else, I tell you.
So I have a couple nerdy season 6 questions to ask you that I've always wanted to ask you.
Yeah,
Okay. So do you have any memories of Laurie Metcalf or Emily Prager being there?
absolutely, both of them, both of them.
Okay.
Laurie Metcalf was maybe the greatest American actress of the last. She's fucking astonishing, and I'd seen her do Bomb in Gilead and any number of plays at Steppenwolf. All of those Steppenwolf people. I was at John Malkovich's wedding to Glenn Headley. They would just that entire company would come in and sit on the bench at Second City because we could get free beer, and they would come by and drink on our bench. Amazing people, and she was the funniest actress. And but in that episode, all she did was sort of an on-camera thing, and but she didn't get brought back to the show. But I mean, she has so many Emmys and Tonys. It's unbelievable. She's just a great actress.
So were you surprised though that the two of them weren't brought back into season 7,
Yeah, Emily
given that
was
they
a
were hired?
music writer. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So that I wanted to know. I also want to know if you have any memories of conversations about the episodes that would have taken place after that first one, because it's long been rumored that Franken and Davis were going to host the following week after
Mhm.
that one with musical guest Grateful Dead, and that Dan Aykroyd was potentially the week after that. Do you remember anything about those episodes or preparing for them?
I do remember them, but but I don't remember reading the material, any of that stuff because I, that
It was just a few days ago. Yeah.
40 some years ago.
No, it's great, but that's, I gotta just ask this because I
Yeah,
know that
no,
people are clamoring to like hear anything they can about
but
it.
it was great. It was an exciting prospect, and that strike lingered on for a
Right.
long time. And yeah, but
So then my last question about season 6, and then we'll move on to some of your other seasons, is that when you were brought on for that one episode, was there any pressure placed upon your shoulders and Robin and Tony to say like, hey, we need you guys to pick up steam here from what we had before? Or was it just sort of like a carte blanche that you could just go in and just try whatever you felt like would be best for the show?
everybody was aware that the life of this show depended upon that show. And it was all of us had that internal pressure of we this is it, we live or die by this show, very much so, and luckily it turned out to be a really terrific show, and we got to pick up Tony Rosato, and we got picked up. Still, those first few years following that, the new show was looming, and it was sort of the thought going around was that if you did Saturday Night Live, you wouldn't get to do anything on the new show that Lauren was going to bring to primetime, and so we did have difficulty getting guests, hosts, and music guests. Yeah, I remember we had George McGovern host one evening, and I told him I voted for him, and he said, "You're the one." So,
You're the one.
I think that's Eddie's last episode too, the George one.
But this is a good bridge into like season 7 though, Tim, to there's on again, off again, and then eventually off forever with O'Donoghue. So just wanted to, ask about your recollection of just, bringing Michael O'Donoghue back and what that was like.
oh, Michael, I personally loved Michael. He was brilliant. He was a genius. Um, at that time, he hauled us all into his office, and his whole thing was, we must kill SNL. And he told us all that we were on a Viking death ship, that we had to burn it down because it was over. because the first 5 years were so great, which they were. So we were all like, I'm kind of sitting there going, geez, if I thought I might be able to get enough money to buy a condominium out of this. And I'm like, shoot. And so Michael, to drive it home, he had a spray can paint, and he said, this is what this show it will be from now on. Danger, danger. And with the spray can on his office wall, started to write danger in black spray paint. And when he got to the G, he ran out of paint. Dang.
That's the part of the story nobody tells.
I know, that's my favorite part. Show needs more dang.
Show needs more dang. Dang nabbit.
I mean, how did you feel about that idea, though, of, all right, let's make the show more dangerous? Was that something you were into?
Yeah, I thought there were shots made at it. Yeah, there was some wild shit, the Bizarro world and all sorts of stuff. And it was, maybe that was Michael's notion to pump us up. Yeah, we were lucky to have a job. We were like, okay, whatever. Write them up. We'll try to.
How did it feel to lose them then? Like, so suddenly? So, you come in, you do like 8 episodes with O'Donoghue there, and then Christmas break, he's gone. Did it feel like you're at sea again? Like.
Yep. Yeah, we didn't know what was going on. But Michael did bring in Terry Southern, who was not. I mean, he had a little cocktail bar in his office and stuff, but not a sketch comedy writer. And the writing staff suffered. There were just a few of us trying to get the show out. Blaustein and Sheffield, and Nate Herman and Elliot Wald, and the amazing Pam Norris was, God, I can't remember.
Marilyn Suzanne Miller was there.
Marilyn's great, and Rosie Schuster was around. Yep. Rosie was great. God, who else? Ann Beats helped out sometimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She was an ex-girlfriend of Michael's. And then Tischler was made associate producer, and we just forged on. And I think after the new show came and went, we were all that year wondering, are we going to survive this year? So it wasn't until after the new show sort of subsided that we, started to pick up steam again.
Interesting. Yeah. Andrew, I know you wanted to ask Tim a little bit about his relationship with Dick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just always so interested about Dick Ebersol and how he produced the show. It's just so different than how Lorne did it, than how Gene did it. And I don't know how much you want to go into it. I've heard that, there was a bit of back and forth with you sometimes with Ebersol on how the show should go. So I didn't, just kind of wanted to hear some of your thoughts on what you wanted to share about it.
Well, there was a time where I felt sort of overwhelmed, overworked. The writing staff wasn't clicking, and I decided this is too much, and I just called John and Judy Belushi, and I just said, I can't take it. I did clash. I'm surprised Dick Ebersol didn't fire me. Because I was the ombudsman, and I went up against him, quite a bit. But he didn't chop my head off. So I actually was saying, John, I'm out of here. And so he said, okay, I'll drive you to the airport. And he and Judy came, picked me up. And then they drove me to 61st Street, I was near Bloomingdale's, whatever, to Judy's psychiatrist. And John sat in the car and said, "You're going to go up there and you're going to talk to this guy, because if you're going to quit this show, you're fucking crazy. Whatever you want to do with your comedy, and say it." He said, "This is it. It's over. You're giving up. And you're out of your mind, because you'll never get a chance like this again. So go up and talk to this guy." And I did, and I kept talking to him for, every other week for the next 3 years, and he kept me sane enough to keep paying his exorbitant fees. No, he was great, and he was an
Was that during season 7
Huh?
that happened? Was that during season 7 that happened?
Yeah. That's the kind of guy John was. And he and Judy were so kind to do that. And he just said, you'll never get a chance to do, have your say again. And God bless him for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, of course, because obviously John would eventually end up passing, and we would see him being honored on the show in the back half of season 7. So just as I'm placing the timeline there,
Yeah.
very fascinating. Do you remember anything at Saturday Night Live about like the reaction to John's death? I know that we had a moment to remember him on the show, but anything from backstage?
Yeah, it was an off week. My birthday's March 3rd, and we were going to have dinner together. And Judy called me and said, "We're going to cancel dinner. John's in LA, and he's not going to make it back." And she says, "And I think he's using again." I was like, "Where's Smokey?" And she said, "He's in Tennessee. It's his daughter's birthday." And then the next day, John died. So, and yeah, yeah. I remember walking down the street, and there was a New York Post headline, "Belushi dead at 32." And there's this old lady standing there and going, "Oh," she's looking and just says, "Oh, what, you silly boy." I was like, "What do you say? 32.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had to help try to find Jim, who was in Chicago doing
Oh boy, yeah.
the show.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, obviously from a viewer perspective, seeing like Brian, I think it was Brian Doyle Murray who comes on and does the Belushi tribute on screen.
Yeah.
Very powerful stuff. So obviously a lot probably led up to how that decision was made and coming up. Yeah.
Funniest human ever. Just
Yeah. James.
So we mentioned just very briefly earlier the one of the many things you're known for is the "I Married a Monkey," which one of the beautiful things about it is that here are these animals that are trained, but like anything can happen. So I'm sure you have many stories. Really, just wanted to say, is there something about working with the monkeys on these SNL sketches that is possibly a story that you could share that maybe no one has heard?
For some reason, the writers love to hire dwarfs. And there were a couple of guys, Butch and Peppy. I think they were Hungarian.
Right.
They were in the Lollipop Guild. They were in the Johnny Weissmuller movies, Tarzan stuff. And I remember Butch telling me, he says, "Watch out for the monkeys." He says, "Hey, someone pick up a typewriter, throw it across the room." And the monkeys are strong. Yeah, he says, "Before they attack, the hairs go up on the arms." I was like, "What? What is it?" He said, "Yeah." So after about I think it was literally the last episode of The Monkeys that I did, my monkey wife was in bed wearing a leopard skin negligee, tethered to the back of the bed. And so I go out and she's got amnesia, and I sit on the bed and I look over, and the look I get is like this. It's not good. That's not good. It was a dress rehearsal. So I said, this is not, that's something's up. And of course, then I look and I see the arm, and the hairs are standing up on the arm. And okay, I'm out of here. And as I leave, the monkey grabs me in a headlock, and which felt like two metal bars. And I managed to put my arm and just squeeze out, and the monkey goes berserk on the bed, jumping up and down on the bed, rips off the negligee, rips off the diaper, revealing that Madge is a guy, begins to pleasure himself. And the audience is like, there are young children in there, and others are covering eyes. And it's just like, that's it. I'm now done with working with. We went on air that night, and the monkey probably had so much Thorazine in him that it was just
drooling. But on the air, so that's great.
Yeah,
that's an amazing story.
That was
we would not have known. But when several of those sketches on air, the brilliance of Tim Kazurinsky is the ad lib type moments, where they're doing something and you just it's just, I gotta say, man, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, initially the first time we did it, I kind of figured, because people would say, "Oh, when does the show tape?" And it's called Saturday Night Live. It didn't have the immediacy, and I thought it'd be nice to try something where something might go wrong, and it did frequently. Yeah.
Enter the Monkeys. Yes.
Yeah. And also, that was the same night that one of the PAs said, Ebersol's taken out a couple of million in insurance every time you work with a chimp. And I'm going,
yeah, he's a sports guy. He bets.
That's the deal. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I do have a lot of respect for Dick. In retrospect, as much as I fought with him, because he allowed people to, speak their mind, and he didn't really hold a grudge. And there's one time I had wanted to do this hitchhiker film, and we did hardly any film back then. There's a lot of film now, a lot of pre-tape stuff and a lot of film, and it was kind of a cherry picking to get a film on the show. So I had this hitchhiker film idea, and we'd had a sort of a bad week, and there was a show when I wrote about 4 sketches, 4 or 5 that got on the show, and he said, I owe you. And I said, I don't know how I can say thank you. I said, let me do the hitchhiker sketch, that movie. And he was, all right. So we went out and shot it, and when it aired, it killed. The audience screamed at the end, and then Dick just looked over and went, what do I know about comedy? But no, he was a very fair guy.
And we love that film, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because when we were visiting during the 50th anniversary, John mentioned we were having brunch, which was just a great time to connect with you and Gary. We were talking about this because everybody loves that film. Which, if you don't know, The Hitchhiker, there's this attractive woman who starts to strip down, who picks Tim up, and then Tim starts stripping down too, and then it's she just drives off the cliff, and Tim's expression is priceless. But we were talking about it, and you and Gary both were mentioning the woman who you still have been in contact with. And then that very night or the next day, I can't remember when we met, at the 50th, a clip from that film
Mm.
in Adam Sandler's uh, tribute, his song, which was one of my favorite parts of the night.
It was a very
There's Tim Kazurinsky. That was pretty cool.
yeah, and that was a thing from the hitchhiker thing. It was it's very very sweet of Adam to do.
Did you write that Hitchhiker film yourself?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was getting a writer's salary as well as a performer's salary while I was there. So that was
A
that was-
rare feat on the show.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was very lucky to have that. So I worked harder as a writer than an actor on that show. So
No.
Well, it didn't show because
No.
I want to transition over to Weekend Update, where I think it was very obvious how big of a star you were on the desk. I mean, Jack Badofsky, I think, is still among favorite update correspondents ever for a lot of people.
The best.
So
The
absolute
best.
best. I mean, you did that. Obviously, you did a salute to journalism and look at books, and you did like a lot of really fun stuff on the update desk. So, how come update was such a natural fit for you?
um,
I guess we called it Saturday Night News then. So
Yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
I just want to be clear.
yeah. Well, sometimes if you were lighting the show, you would want to do an update thing, so you'd make an appearance. So and sometimes things were you just had little ideas that were short, or I'm kind of a list maker, and I just like almost a list comedian, and I love bad puns. So
That's
uh,
great.
yeah, so I just I love being on update. It was great, and I when I went in for the 40th party, I was up in the nosebleed seats and Colin Jost and Michael Che came up there and were the sweetest guys and just said, we wanted to meet you and tell you that, even though your shows never ran on the air, we went to the archives and saw it, and we like what you did. And I felt very touched that those guys did that. And I really love them as a team. I think they're just incredibly great, and they do a lot of brave and daring stuff. Yeah. O'Donoghue would be proud of those guys.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's high praise.
Yeah, they're great.
And if you would have done Badofsky at the 50th, like when they were rolling out like different update correspondence, like I think the whole crowd goes wild. Like that would have been a crazy memory. For those pieces that you did on update, I know you said you were writing and performing at the same time. Did you ever workshop any of those pieces with a specific writer beyond yourself?
No, it's weirdly people other writers would come and literally shove, so that they know I'd be working on a Dr. Jack or whatever, and just shove things under the door and stuff. And it was like, that's very sweet. It's very nice. But it kind of doesn't. It kind of didn't work. It was just a little obsessive, compulsive thing of doing these. That it was hard to. But there was a guy there, George Scognamillo. God rest his soul. George was great, and Hal Wilner too. Those two guys
Hal.
helped keep me sane. It's just wonderful. George passed away from AIDS at a very tender age. He's the sweetest man, but he helped me a lot put those, because we tried it with a Chiron, and the timing was so off. And George literally said to me, "You need cards. You need to time it with the flip of the cards." And God bless him, he was so right. So we took it off the show the first time we were going to try it, and did it with the cards. And
So what was his role?
George Scognamillo, he was just an assistant on the
Oh, an
show,
assistant.
but
Okay.
he just helped everybody, and anybody that needed something or helped him. Just wonderful, wonderful guy.
I remember the name. So, and then Hal Wilner. How did you guys collaborate? And I know he was
Hal, so- yeah,
musically. Yeah.
he did all the incidental music, and ironically, God, I went to Hal's apartment one time in New York, and he must have had 12,000 vinyl CD, and he would come to Chicago over the years. Would come to Chicago at record stores trying to find old jazz and blues stuff. And I've been telling about a song. I'm Hal. Have you heard? I'm gonna give it to Mary with love. And he would, oh yeah, that was the guy who did the voice of Jiminy Cricket. It's on this album. It's the second side, second track on the B side. Like he was like, yeah. But Hal actually produced. I mean, he did amazing salutes to master musicians from Kurt Weill, just Rota. He did a Disney album. He did this. He'd done produced two John Prine albums. Was very, very close to John Prine. He's an amazing songwriter, and Hal died of COVID same day, literally the same day that John Prine died of COVID, and I was so stricken and horrified, but the only comforting thing was that there is a symmetry to and I'm not religious or mystical, believe me, that I just thought of the two of them, their spirits riding off together on the same day.
Yeah, when things like that happen, that's pretty. You just have to
beyond
sort of embrace it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see? I assume you did. Did you see the tribute that the current cast did at the SNL,
Yes,
the at-home episodes for Hal? I thought that was really pretty special.
Really, really beautiful, and yeah, he changed everybody's life. Yeah, he's an amazing person.
I can't let this moment go because Dr. Jack is my favorite character of all time. So I just want to ask, did it happen naturally, or did you kind of start coaching the audience to get mad at you as the entry started to go along?
Yeah. Well, again, Dick Ebersol came at, we do after, address, he'd go, hey, we got to cut this one and this one and this one. The people were groaning at that. And I went, yeah, they're supposed to. Because, it's going, you're going to throw in some clunkers and some cornball things, and then you hit them with something that they were not expecting. And then it amps up the laugh. But yeah, there were stinkers in there for the intentionally. Yeah.
It's one of I just like it's one of the few times the show actually has like a conversation with the audience. Like the character is actually like antagonizing the audience. It's so wonderful. I love it.
Andrew, what are some of your favorite of those puns?
Oh God, they're so.
Or am I putting you on the spot? I know you're. Yeah.
In the herpes one.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the whole STD jag is probably the best one.
The herpes
complex, herpes duplex,
yeah.
Rabies, scabies, cascasabies.
Well, I think if you don't mind me saying, Tim, I do think that I'm a huge fan of puns as well. I think for those who don't know the character as well as us, like one thing to go back and watch is your facial expressions during the lifting up the puns and the cards. You look horrified to be there, as if you couldn't and it just in the world of the character, that character is petrified to be showing these to the audience, and I love every minute of the way you play that.
Yeah, it's like, am I going to get away with this? I was particularly fond of Lacerpes. However many people would know what that was. It just, there were some things in there just for fringe people. Yeah, and it's odd because one of my best friends is David Pasquesi, who was, as you probably remember him as Julia Louis-Dreyfus's husband on Veep, who was stooping everybody but her. Yeah, and David says he absolutely hates puns. That he really, really does. And I love to just use puns when we're together playing cards and just horrify him and his wife.
So I was just thinking, when you, John, when you mentioned the looks at books, was it that one, or was it you used Worthington Klotman as that was the kind of a reflip of the
Bill
censor's
Clotworthy.
name, right?
Yes, Bill Worthington, Bill Clotworthy.
Bill
Yeah,
Clotworthy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who was to be horrified at things that I did. Something messed up one time, and this was very. I mean, we did things like peony pads and stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah.
There was something screwed up in one time, and I somehow improvised the word scumbag. And I remember him coming down the hallway, like blithering, going, yeah, that is a used prophylactic, and it's banned in like Kentucky and West Virginia, and it's going to take us $10,000 to cut that out of the California broadcast. And I'm like, ay, 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 this is like, good Lord.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy to hear this. And before we leave the update desk, though, gentlemen, I think, still, am I right, John? The only person to have played two characters at the same update is Tim on the Howard Hessman 83. That was what was it? Seymour P. Higgins. You takes off the hat and the wig.
Yeah, and then you're having a good time, Vishnu. Your
Oh,
character.
yeah. Oh, I love doing the Guru. Oh, that was, and
Which we talked about. You
I
haven't got any flack.
I never caught any flack from most East Indian people were didn't have an issue like they had with the Simpsons, Apu. But
It's never malicious, is the thing.
yeah, I don't know if Apu was malicious, but I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, but that feat that you pulled off that night was super impressive. It's something that I don't think many
I
people
honestly
would ever
don't
do.
remember that I did two in one night. That's,
Yeah,
Two characters, because it was like, yeah, you just you had the same right,
Yeah.
Andrew? Like
Yeah, I think you do Good Time first, and then you put the wig and hat on, and then it starts to come off, and you're like, screw it, and just throw it off for the second.
It's very funny. It's a great moment. We'll have to send that one to you, Tim, so you can watch it again.
I tell you, I did have on the weekend update thing, which it can be pressure. Mayor Koch, I was, let's see, when I was coming off a bit, Mayor Koch was coming on, and oh God, why am I blanking on the fight promoter with the
Don
hair?
King.
Don King was coming on, and so as Koch is being mic'd up and put in position, and the cue heads are going up. He's going, Don, what are you doing? Taking your fights, to Vegas and stuff. He said, bring it back to New York. We're the one who made you. And he's like, and here he was working for New York City, and I've just had so much respect. And it's like, guy, you're going to be on TV Weekend Update. Get your ass in the seat. Line up your cue cards. And he's selling New York.
making deals.
He's making deals with Don King, and I went, that's a good mayor.
Wow. That is interesting. I think actually this is a great segue point. If you guys don't mind, I did have a question on our list where I wanted to ask you, in season 9, after Brad Hall, who had been working the news desk for a while, was sort of, taken off that role and given more of a role in sketches. I believe they sort of take the hosts and put them in the anchor role for Saturday Night News for a bunch of weeks in a row. Were you offered the role of a Saturday Night News anchor at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. So did you turn it down? What was the story there?
No, I turned it down. I just said, Dick, I'm not comfortable doing that mid-season. We were a family. I love these guys. I love Brad Hall. I said, I don't want to do that.
So you felt like if you were to do it, it would have been like a slap in the face.
If you want it like next year to start the shit, but then again, ironically, there was no next year. So it's fine. But I would have been okay to maybe do that the next year, but not mid-season. No, that's be an insult to my friend Brad.
Yeah, that's just it's really a fascinating story, and total respect for you for making that call. when you did. Andrew, I know you wanted to ask Tim a little bit about some of the special shows that happened throughout the years with the call-in shows and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what marks Ebersol's years the most are the real format-breaking ones, like the call-in episodes, Larry the Lobster, should we have Andy Kaufman back on, and also episodes that feature like very heavy improv, like, you know, Joan Rivers or Don Rickles. So I was just kind of wondering what you thought about those type of things in terms of really throwing the show out live. And also, how did you guys prepare for somebody like Don Rickles in dress rehearsal, you know, or a call-in segment?
Okay, well, I actually will take the blame and the credit for that, because Don was so struggling so hard to read the cue cards, and he just felt really restrained and mechanical. And I was kind of babysitting him that week. The most wonderful guy. Oh God, what an amazing human being. And he was having difficulty, and so I went to Ebersol and I said, Dick, why don't you on these sketches just give him his opening line and his closing line on the cue cards, and then let him be. And Don loved it. He also wanted to do work with the monkeys.
He
So-
smacks a banana out of Madge's hand. It's the scariest thing ever.
and I thought, if that didn't make the hairs go up, what's
No.
more?
No.
So, no, they it really worked much better for him. He felt much more comfortable doing that. I think some of the other cast members were like, "Oh, that's going to mess me up," and I went, well, "You'll be okay. It's fine." But he was great.
So did you run, to Andrew's point, did you kind of run dress rehearsal the same, you know, get your footing for the live show in the same basic steps through the sketches?
Yeah, there's a 7:30 show, and then there's an 11:30 show, and
And
there's
so
a
you
lot
just let Don riff throughout both of them and just said, we'll figure it out live?
yeah. I can't remember if I'd figured that out on a Friday or a Saturday. I don't know if we did it between dress and air. I'm too old.
Well, and Andrew, I like your questions about all those call-in things. I mean, it was the beginning of like those not 800 or 900 number, you know, things. So yeah, it's just a very different feel from the SNL today that in many cases is lacking maybe danger
Yeah,
or the safety net is there.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, how would you guys prepare for just like, and here's the call-in segment where we'll read out the numbers, and we don't know exactly how long that's going to be. So it's like, how did you prepare an episode around segments you really couldn't time?
Yeah, they were hugely successful. Those things, and people participated, and I think that they were probably with Davey Wilson slotted in as, you know, we're going to give an update here, we're going to give an update here, we're going to give, you know, and Bill had, yeah. So
okay, so there was like probably a pre-subscribed time that they are going to be then.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's a very, very scripted show, and it's run like clockwork. And
Okay.
So were there any surprises? For example, the phone-in Democratic primary that ZZ Top was going to win.
yeah. Oh yeah. So I never ever thought that Andy would be voted off. I was like,
Yeah, that one.
yeah.
Yeah. I know Gary Kroger said that he was no fan to have be put out on the stage to be reading this. It's like, I don't want Andy to go though. I don't want to go out there and read these numbers.
Andy was brilliant. One of the most, yeah.
Well, let me ask you, Tim, about an episode that you were, I don't know if you were put on the spot for, but sort of put in the spotlight, I would say, which is that Drew Barrymore hosts in season 8. And I think it is a really fascinating episode. Obviously, as the youngest host that SNL has, and you are kind of like the pseudo host that night.
Yeah,
What was your experience like with Drew?
I was, what was she, maybe 8?
Yeah.
She was amazing, and she was a great kid, and um, I I loved her. She was just wonderful to be with, and we hit it off. And I remember there was a time where having a picture taken as a group, and she's like hugging me and hugging my leg, and Eddie's over there going, "Whoa!" Eddie Murphy's going, "Oh," going as if, and I'm going, "Don't go there, Eddie, please."
I mean, Belushi was really spot on the idea that you would be the den mother for this cast, and you can see it in episodes like Drew Barrymore, or even, as I learned today, the Don Rickles episode. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, what was that was our thing at Second City, is we were a unified bunch, that we, and that was with George too, George and Danny Breen, and Nancy Kelly and Bruce Jarko, Mary Gross. We, to this day, and Audrey Neenan, we're all pals.
That's
and
great.
and we would present a united front, and that the same thing at SNL. And also, as Eddie and Joe were given more and more material, Eddie was terrific. He was always say, "I'm doing too much in the show. Let's give something to this guy or that guy, or whatever." He would try and share the wealth, and and then you got producers are going, "Well, this is our skyrocket here. This is what This is what this guy's keeping us on the air, whatever." But Eddie was, he was great. And you're working with him for years and years and years, and then one night the producer says, "Oh, we're going to Studio 54 after the show to celebrate." And, "Well, what's the occasion?" "Oh, it's Eddie's 21st birthday." And you're going, "Okay, please, you're kidding
There
me?"
you go.
Yeah.
But the den mother kind of thing even shows up in the Solidarity. It's the first time hearing that about the Weekend Update, or the SNL News offer. When
Well, see,
9.
Eddie was also, he's trying to share, and
Yeah.
just we had a good karma with that cast.
Yeah. That was always my thing when people talk about that era. Is just like everybody just kind of assumes it's all Eddie. And it's like, no, if you actually sit down and watch it, no, it's a really great ensemble era. Like, nobody really consumes the show.
Oh yeah. Oh God. And Robin Duke. God, so much fun to work with. That one scene where we had been celibate for quite some time, and then
Yes,
just decided
yes,
to, you and it's like, get rid of everybody.
yeah. You have a dinner party and you shove everybody out, and
yeah.
I'll also say, if I could just jump in with a quick stat on that, is that, to your point, Andrew, about it being an ensemble era, Tim averaged 4.5 sketches an episode during his tenure as a cast member. Those are like Hall of Fame numbers, honestly, because, now there's nobody in the current cast for their career who has averaged over 4 sketches an episode. Obviously different times with the larger cast, so that's the caveat there, but still, just comparing you to some of the people from, in smaller casts, I still think you have great numbers, and it shows how much of a utility player you were throughout your time.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's yeah. I actually feel bad for the cast now. There's so many people trying to get some airtime. It's like, what? Really hard.
So in season 9, what do you remember in terms of, like, so we have the Spinal Tap boys come in. There's this Billy Crystal kind of coming on the scene a couple times. So towards the end of that season, were you was there this anticipation of change coming, and did you want to come back for season 10?
Yeah. I was getting pretty burnt out, but I thought season 10, that's going to get me the condo. So I'm going to stick. I'll stick it out for another year. But actually, Police Academy got me the house. So that's
There you go.
but yeah,
Which
no,
everybody loves you from that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But really, Eddie was leaving, and how do you deal with that? And I think it may be a genuine stroke of genius by Ebersol to let go of me, Robin, uh, did Gary, maybe Gary said Joe,
Brad's gone.
Brad, yeah,
Yeah.
and he had to, I think, shake it up. So to make up for that, and those guys, I think is that the first time established stars came in that wasn't the thing to do. That hadn't been done before, but you know what? It I guess generated a lot of interest, and they're all really talented guys. I mean, so it may be a gambit, and that was Dick's last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was that how bitter or not bitter was it in terms of like, did you watch the show that season live or did you stay away?
Oh, absolutely watched it. I've watched every show, and I tape every show. Just because it's
That's nice.
your history. So
Even
no,
to this day.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
So how do you feel about the current show that you've been watching?
Yeah, you know, how do you handle like losing a Kate McKinnon? You know, yeah, it's just the megastars come, the megastars go, and then everybody else. I mean, there's a whole bunch of new people that are really, and also watching them grow as
Right.
in subsequent years, and you just see them get better and better and better, and that's kind of fun to see them all just improve. Yeah.
So I want to ask you, Tim. I heard a story, and I would love if you could, complete what I've heard. Did you have something to do with Robert Smigel getting a job as a writer after that first year when Lauren comes back?
Yeah. I had, when I just first moved to New York, this kid came up to me in the mailbox area of the building I was in, and said he just finished school and he wanted to go into comedy. And I said, well, if you're really serious, you go to Chicago, you study with Del Close, and you learn that stuff, and you'll be a different person. And that's trial by fire. And I had no idea until many years later that that guy was Robert Smigel, and I was already an enormous fan of him and Triumph the Insult Dog and old moves, and I was like, you're that guy. I remember the incident, and I remember the kid, but I never really put him to. He's the one that informed me that was the case, and also I'd done. When I was doing the big city comedy show in Canada, there was a kid that came in, and it was lunchtime, and sat down and talked to him, and told him about Second City in Toronto. We were shooting up in Canada, and then when I came back a few years later I think it was a police academy thing or whatever I was doing up there, and I went to work at Second City, and this kid was really helping me out a whole lot at Second City. And I went, what's with this kid? His name was Mike Myers. And he said he told you to come here and do this. And crazy thing, about 10 years later, I got a call from my agent and said, Mike Myers called and wants you to direct
Austin Powers?
No,
Axe Murderer?
no, it's Jesus, Wayne's World.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
And
wow.
Right.
No way.
I'm
Wow.
literally, yeah, and I'm literally in the shower. Not that that would have ever happened, mind you.
Uh-huh.
I'm literally in the shower, and I'm not sure what was going on, and I was like, "This is crazy." I have my door just opened. Oh, my dog just came in.
Is it Zippy?
It's Zippy. Look, here, I'll show you.
Zippy.
Where's Zippy? Where's Zip?
Oh.
Zip. And Nova Scotia duck tolling retriever. Just good because we're talking about Canada now. He must have heard the reference. Um, and I was just like, "Oh, this is absurd. I have no idea how to direct. I am musically bankrupt. This is if Mike's going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to disappoint him." So I just went, even if it was true, no. That's not. The 11th commandment should be know thy limitations. So, yeah, I was, yeah, I didn't even chase that down, but I was very, very flattered that Mike Myers sought to do that. It's a lovely man.
That is
Yeah, that's
crazy.
incredible. So tell us a little bit. I know you've been to multiple anniversary parties. The 50th was a huge celebration, both a music event on Friday night and then the anniversary party, the after party, all that stuff.
So great.
Tell us a little bit about, who you got to see and just if we can all just live vicariously through your experience. It's so wonderful that you were, Marcia, allowed you to get out there and to visit with your friends. So tell us a
I
little
had
bit about that.
an absolutely great time. The concert Friday at Radio City Music Hall was freaking dazzling. It was, I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm 75 years old. Cher, 78 years old, out there in a Victoria's Secret outfit that barely hides her hoo-ha, and she's 78 and singing "If I Could Turn Back Time." Kills. Just, I was like, she is a freak. She's amazing. The whole night was so great. I got to visit on the Saturday, visit a bunch of other friends, hanging out with Gary Kroger, and that first night hanging out with Robin and a bunch of Canadians. It was phenomenal. And going to the Sunday that after the show Sunday, for me the greatest thing was going up to Sir Paul McCartney and telling him that I had written a movie in shot in Liverpool, and he said, "Oh, is that the one with Julie Walters?" And I said, "Yeah, you saw that movie?" He said, "I love that movie." He says, "Not very many movies made about Liverpool," and I was like, "Holy shit!" And I couldn't wait to get off backstage, and I called George Wendt. I said, "George," because George played Paul Reiser's best friend in the movie, and I said, "George, you're not going to believe this. Sir Paul McCartney saw our movie. He loved it, and George was over the moon, and I was over the moon, and it was a huge, huge treat." Yeah,
That's very
That's a
cool.
really special memory.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
and I'm so happy that you were there and that you were part of the celebration. So that's really really cool. Especially that you said like Sandler mentioned you on the show. So just for everyone's like, oh, Kazurinsky got to mention. Like that was a really fun, fulfilling
A
moment.
sweet man, Adam Sandler is. Yeah, he just
Yeah.
looks out for everyone. He's another guy. All of his friends. He's a great friend.
Another den mother type of figure, honestly. No?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, when he mentioned, Among and Van Rye and Joe Dixo and Davey Wilson and all those guys. I mean, it was just super special, heartwarming.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
also, so for people know, Van Rye and Joe Dixo were these cute guys that were opera fans. They were opera addicts, and it's like, who knew that these people had these
That's funny.
secret obsessions? Yeah,
That's amazing, Andrew. I would be remiss if I didn't just give you an opportunity. If you had like one or two other dirty questions for Tim that you've always wanted to ask him, go ahead.
You said nerdy, not dirty, right?
No, nerdy. Well, I'm surprised actually it got brought up already a couple times because I'm just so fascinated by big city comedy. Because you can barely find it these days. But two, it's just anything you have said today about it, I believe, is the only information online about the show. So I'm fascinated by any other tidbits you can say about big city comedy, working with Jon, or just whatever.
Oh God, working with Jon, and then Jennifer was just born. He was a baby. It was the most wonderful hang. He was so great. Tino Insana, who was in John Belushi's original trio of comedians in Chicago: Belushi, Steve Bishakus, and Tino Insana. Was the loveliest man. He was in the cast. Margaret Trudeau was one of the hosts. Everybody had the greatest time. Betty White, she was old then, and that was like 1980. God, and she had one sketch where you remember the John Cameron Swayze. It's still ticking. The Timex watch might be on for you guys, but she was playing Miss Faversham, and she's covered in cobwebs, and she wakes up and then the watch is it's still ticking, and so the director says to her, "Oh, that's lovely." And she, this time we do one more take. This time, could you pick up the pace and just like wake up with a jerk. And and she goes, "Well, wouldn't be the first time." I'm like, Betty White kills.
So good.
Yeah, everybody, and Jon is so funny in that series. He and Tino were longtime pals, and just every week, every taping was just a party. And Toronto's a great town. What a great town to hang. Yeah,
that's awesome. That's great.
Really good to hear. Tim, this was an absolute delight just to get this time with you and to hear your stories.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, if we didn't say it enough, there's just so many fans of you out there. Anything you would like to say to the SNL community who rides for you?
Love you all. Keep watching. Here's one I can say: rent the movie "Strange Relations" with Paul Reiser, Julie Walters. She won the the BAFTA, the British Academy Award for it. It's a wonderful film. I think it's Reiser is brilliant in, and George Wendt and Olympia Dukakis. You're going to love this movie. I'm most known for writing About Last Night, which was with Jim Belushi, but I'm sort of more proud of Strange Relations.
All right. Thank
well,
you for
you've had an incredible career, including you were the original in Wicked, Wizard of Oz, right?
I toured for almost a year and a half with Wicked as the Wizard of Oz, and just this morning I got a note from my dresser, Caroline Peck, in Sacramento, and she said, when George drove up from LA to see you in Wicked in Sacramento, and you said to me, please go out and get him. Then she said, when the show was over, I ran out into the crowd and I found him and I grabbed him and I said, I'm Tim's dresser and you've got to come back. And she said, as I dragged him through the crowd, he was just laughing his head off because nobody was recognizing him and he was able to get through. And she said, it's such a fond memory of that sweet man. And it just made my heart go pity pat. Yeah. What a lovely man.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all those memories with us, Tim. We really appreciate all the time you gave us. So thanks so much to Tim Kazurinsky. My thanks to Tim Kazurinsky for joining us on SNL Stories this time. Seriously, just an incredible wealth of knowledge. So many fun stories from Tim. James, that was so exciting.
Yeah, he really speaks from the heart about George. It's George Wentz, whose passing was just here this week, the week that we recorded this. But some insight behind the scenes on just some of our favorite Tim Kazurinsky moments. It's truly special, and it was just an honor to share it with Andrew Dick.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you guys so much for having me on for this. It was a blast. It was everything I could have hoped for and more. I thought I was saving my big nerdy question at the end about big city comedy, and then he brings it up like 3 times beforehand. And I was like,
Right.
this is awesome. I don't even need to
What a
ask him
tease.
about it.
Yeah, I'm glad we got that
Ah.
in. So, yeah, like I said, for me, I couldn't think of doing this without you, Andrew, and I'm really glad that we got the opportunity to get you guys in a room together, sort of. But yeah, no, we if you haven't been following our social media, we posted at the 50th that I got to sit down with Tim and with James and got to speak to him, and he was just like, every SNL cast member, they all have different personalities. But Tim is might be the nicest cast member I have ever met. And he is just a gem. And when we spoke to him about coming on the podcast, he was like, oh, yeah, we could talk about anything. And I thought you saw that through the show. So I really love all of the background, all of the stories he was giving. Definitely some new tidbits I learned about the Ebersol era. So really thank you to Tim for joining us. Thanks for James and Andrew for all of your questions here
Thank
today.
you, John. Because truly, I mean, I gotta say, no, seriously, the network you've created here, the tipping point I think for Tim that just got him really excited is really what this is all about. I mean, it's statistics in the sense of, we talk about it a lot, like the institution that is SNL. We treat very much like sports, and in the way that we follow it and those stats. And so to for him, Tim, when we first conversed with him about just this mad following that Andrew Dick is the line leader of, was the sort of the episode, the reason for him going, really? And there's more and more people that are able to find his work now in terms of just Peacock and all these things online, but just the way you've been able to even describe, you did it in the interview about his number of sketches, average, just thank you, John, for what you've created here.
Well, thank you. That's very, very nice. I do appreciate it. If you did enjoy this conversation here with Tim, please let us know what you thought. So comment on the YouTube video, give us your thoughts. Maybe you have a great memory of Tim Kazurinsky on the show. I definitely would love to read those after the fact. If you enjoy the things that we do over here, you're welcome to subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, so you never miss anything going on the SNN. We have a ton of other great SNL stories in the backlog, including the one we did with Fred Armisen last week, which was a really fun interview. So we encourage you to go check that one out. Also, new episodes of Everything You Need to Know About SNL will be coming out very shortly. So if you want to go back and watch Tim Kazurinsky's seasons, we have a great way to do it through the Everything You Need to Know series. So that is all available on the SNN YouTube channel, and you can follow us on social media at the SNL Network. Andrew, what's happening on That Week in SNL throughout the summer?
Over the summer, at least on the free feed, we'll be releasing some old off-week stuff. I mean, we're kind of taking a break from SNL and kind of getting into just other sketch ephemera that interests us. So new stuff on the Patreon. We'll be covering the 50th anniversary special, probably in June or July. That's probably going to be a 2-parter because that thing is very long. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff coming up for us. Going to be talking about the Brady Bunch hour, one of the worst shows of all time. So, that kind of stuff that interests me, bizarre sketch and variety ephemera and such. But yeah, if you want to go listen to me and my buddy Timmy talk about some of those Ebersol episodes that we discussed, you can find it at That Week in SNL.
And I was recently on That Week in SNL as well to talk about the Elliot Gould episode as they wrapped up their season. So that was a lot of fun to be there. Always fun to cross over to your podcast. And Andrew recently joined us for an episode of By the Numbers. So great to connect with you again. So really thank you, James. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us here today. I want to thank our presenting partner for the show, LateNighter.com. A lot of great things happening over at Late Nighter as we move into the summer months and talk about all the things that are speculating about the future of SNL, and then also what's happening in late night shows throughout the summer. So great stuff over at Late Nighter. Thanks to everyone in the chat for checking this one out. My name is Jon Schneider from the SNN, and we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.